Righto, it's time for my next guest now, and on the show now we have a gentleman. His name is Will Crewsdon, and thank you for accepting my invitation to come on to the Dennison Radio feature, Will.
That's all right.
And
No,
I just,
pleasure to be here.
yeah, it's great to have your company, and I just thought it'd be nice for you to share some of your memories of working with some of the most iconic names in the music business, as well as what you do as well. If you'd like to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, so I'll open it up. Where did you grow up, and were you always surrounded by music in your household, neighbourhood?
Yeah, I grew up in Hampton, which is southwest London, kind of very suburban, drab. Nothing like London itself, really. So I couldn't wait to get into central London and away from that. But yeah, there was quite a lot of music around. We had a piano in the front room, and then I just went through every instrument known to man, really. I just ended up having a drum kit as I was growing up, and a massive bass cab in the front room at one point, and then guitar, because I was having guitar lessons the whole sort of right from when I was 9 years old. So
sure,
yeah, there's a lot of music around. Yeah.
So you're a bass player, an instrumentalist. What kind of age did you first pick
I'm
up?
a guitarist.
Oh,
actually,
guitarist.
yeah.
So you cover all guitars.
Yeah.
When did you first pick up the guitar?
When I was 9, when I had lessons.
So you started young. And what is your favourite guitar amplifier cabinet, if you had to select one?
Are you saying favourite guitar amplifier and cabinet, or?
Yeah, I suppose amplifier.
Okay, well, my favourite guitar is a Taisco Spectrum 5, which is quite an unusual looking guitar. It's a Japanese kind of 60s model. I've got a couple of reissues of it, and so I use that a lot. My favourite amp is my Carvin Bel Air, which I've been using for a few decades now. So that works for me. And whatever cab I put it through, really, as long as it's got 4 speakers, it will work.
Yeah, cool. And how are you finding this quarantine time? Is it kind of been an ideal time to be studious? To get some recording done in the studio.
Yeah, well, I've put out 2 albums and about 3 EPs over this year, so I wasn't expecting to be so sort of prolific with the releases, but it's just out of necessity, really, because that's my only outlet at the moment. I love playing live, but unfortunately it's not possible at the moment. So I have stuff lined up for next year, so I'm just fingers crossed it will be safe enough to do that.
Sure. I was just going to touch on some of your material a bit later. I just wanted to ask you about your kind of love for the 80s and new wave scene. But first on up, who were your favourite kind of bass players of all time, past or present? There's been quite a few: The Flea, The Edge, Peter Hook, Jaco Pastorius, to name but a few.
The Edge. Okay. Bass players. I'm just trying to think. I do like Peter Hook's stuff, because that's more kind of like lead bass playing. It's very different from. I think he people that sort of, and it's always obvious when you hear him that it's him playing.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. And also Simon Gallup from The Cure was kind of along those lines as well. Very distinctive sound.
Cool.
He used a lot of effects as well.
Sure. And you have a stellar lineup of artists you've collaborated with, including Malcolm McLaren, Bow Wow Wow and Adamant. What do you like about the early period of music in the early 80s?
Well, it's kind of, I guess that sort of area of your life, that age, is anything that's around you sticks with you kind of for the rest of your life. And a lot of that stuff was pretty big at the time. So, and also I was a bit too young to get into punk, but this was all sort of the aftermath of punk, I guess. And I sort of still got off on that energy. I probably would have been into punk if I'd have been a bit older. But it was just, to me, it was a more interesting period, really. Less, everything got a bit more diluted and went off in all different directions from punk. So, it's a great period.
It's really interesting, that period, 79, 80, 81, how that music just changed electronic music, how it just kind of went into electronics. Yeah,
definitely. That's when it became possible to do that, and a lot of people sort of use that in a punk way, rather than just blasting out on guitars. You could get hold of keyboards pretty cheaply, and I think that's what bands like Depeche Mode obviously all came out of that, just from being able to do it themselves. You know.
Nice. And you've worked with Adamant. What can you tell me more about Stuart Goddard? Was there more to him than, say, behind that painted white stripe? Was he a little bit of an enigma?
I don't know Stuart Goddard. Only know Adamant.
Oh, Adamant. So that's his band, isn't it? Adamant.
Adamant is his name.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think Stuart Goddard's his
That
real
is
name.
what he's known as.
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
only his mother calls him Stuart, but no one else does. So.
Oh, okay, so Adamant.
So I don't know Stuart.
Yeah. So
Sorry?
what can you tell me about Adamant, the man behind the painted white stripe?
Well, he hasn't worn the white stripe since the early 80s,
Yeah.
so there's been a lot, he's done a lot of stuff since then. And I think that's one thing you can say about him is he did change a lot, over the years from album to album, which is kind of, most bands that came out, even in that period where it was quite a sort of progressive period, it was, I think he was one of the only ones to actually make an effort and try and change his image and his sound with every album, so, and he still, he was still doing that right up to the last album, really, which is about 6 years ago. So,
it's like reinvention's key in this music industry, isn't it? Keep trying to kind of like reinvent yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a good way to be. Yeah.
And have you worked with Bow Wow Wow as well, the band?
Yeah, I did a tour. It was kind of like their last tour, really, and that was in the UK about 8 years ago, I think, 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, they've had a few. They've had a few.
I played Rebellion with them.
And nice. They've had a few hits, haven't they? And albums. They even had an album called "When the Going Gets Tough, the Tough Gets Going." They slipped that one in way before Billy Ocean's hit of the same name, and featured the song "Do You Want to Hold Me" as well. "Do You Want to Hold Me"? That's one of their hits as well.
Yeah, that's a good song. Yeah, I enjoyed playing that.
Great stuff. Thanks for telling me a little bit of the 80s decade and who you worked with, and also you're a member of the Selector and electro-pop duo She Made Me Do It. How did that come together?
Well, She Made Me Do It. That's my own band, and that came together because my old band, Rachel Stamp, we were trying to write some new songs a few years ago, and it didn't, for one reason or another, it didn't really sort of happen with that band. So myself and Shahina, who was the keyboard player in that band, she decided she was going to sing, and we just decided to use these songs for a new project, and that's how She Made Me Do It was born, really.
Excellent. And am I right, you've also dabbled in spaghetti western soundtracks?
Not specifically, but that's a big part of the sound I do with my solo stuff, which goes under the name Scant Regard. And I've just released a new album called Massive Cult Following, and there's a very heavy spaghetti electro, I call it, because it's kind of half electronic and half and one leg in the Morricone kind of soundtrack scape.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a part of it, but I mix up loads of styles with that.
So a little bit of a combination of all type of musics in Europe. Yeah, cool. And
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, what's your favourite spaghetti western if you had to choose one?
I think I'll probably go with the classic Good, Bad and the Ugly, really, just because it's a great story and amazing soundtrack. Really.
Great stuff. And you've had quite a successful career in music business. And do you see it as like an enjoyment, doing something you enjoy and kind of getting paid for it? That's success in its own right, isn't it? Doing something you enjoy and love.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of used to not being paid for it because I've been doing it for years and years. You go through periods of that, and then so when you do actually get paid for it, and you're still doing exactly what you want, which I have done for these last few decades, really. It's definitely an amazing feeling. Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, Will Crewsdon, keep picking up that guitar and strumming it and playing it. And thanks for accepting my invitation to come on to the Dynaston Radio feature. Are there any final words you may like to finish off with for our listeners?
If you just check out scantregard.com, you'll find everything you need to know about my music and all the other stuff I do there, really. So,
great stuff.
If people want to check that out, that'd be great.
Lovely. Will Crewsdon, thanks for reminiscing about your love of 1980s music and telling me who you worked with over that golden era. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
You're welcome.